Hi everyone, it's Ileana and I have a card to share with you today. We teamed up with Chameleon pens to do a blog hop, and this is the card I made using the pens that they sent me. I'm starting off with a Stampin' Up! Stamp set called Remarkable You, and I'm just going to use my mini MISTI to stamp this out. I'm going to stamp this out 2 times, so in case I mess up, I have a second flower to color on. And I'm just going to flip my card over just so that the position is in the same spot and I'm not having to move my stamp on the lid. I'm going to be using the pink number 2 Dusty Rose. And what you do with these pens is you separate them from the long barrel, and part of the barrel has an infusion tip, and you just butt the 2 tips together, and then it kind of diffuses the color so you can get this kind of a gradient color. And I watched a few videos. One of them was with Alina, and she usually takes her pen after she's done and she scribbles to get it back to the original color. And instead of doing that, I just decided to scribble on the next petal that I was going to do. Each time I infused the marker, I did it for about 4 seconds. And that was just enough to get it just the right amount for each petal. And then also what I learned was that if you do kind of an oval instead of a side to side, you're going to overlap your strokes and then you don't get that line. And for the petals on the bottom, I still wanted to do the gradient, so even though there's a shadow, I just did it for the consistency of the stamped image. And for the stem, I thought it would be darker underneath the flower, and so I went from the bottom up with the gradient. And I went back and wanted to see what would happen if I went back and redid a petal, so I went ahead and did a couple of them just because I thought that you could see the strokes, and so it turned out pretty good. You kind of have to get used to counting when you do the tip to tip, and you're able to see on some of the markers where it gets a little bit lighter, so you know that there isn't as much color in the tip. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to put my colored image back into my mini MISTI, and I'm going to use my VersaFine Black Onyx ink, and I'm going to stamp it a couple times, and I really think that this adds quite a bit to the card, just that dark black on there. And you can see the difference between that one and the dark. I'm just going to use some clear embossing powder to just even make it even pop even more. It'll give it that little glossy finish. I do go back and I end up doing the same thing to the other flower, and I end up making a duplicate card, so it didn't go to waste. Now I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm just going to fussy cut them, and I did that off camera just so that you wouldn't be bored. And now I'm taking the black marker and I'm just going against the edge of the flower. It gives it a finished look so that you don't see the cardstock from the side. And I always do it from the back side going forward because sometimes the marker shifts and then I end up coloring on the back side. Once that's done, I'm going to put this on my card, and I'm using the scallop circles from Pretty Pink Posh, and I die cut one out of blush pink from Paper Tray, and I'm actually pulling out an old tool I haven't used in a long time. It's my Martha Stewart circle cutter. I found that the scallop circle from Pretty Pink Posh is just under 4 inches, and so I took my circle cutter and I cut the 3 15/16 inch circle, and I also cut out more, I die cut more of the scalloped circles so that I could stack them together. I tried to do this with foam, but it was too, it flattened it out too much and it distorted it. And when I tried to put the sticky adhesive onto it, it just made it a big mess. So I just thought it'd be easier just to cut out several and then glue them together. And now I'm going to take my circle. I did cut out a piece of blue cardstock, and this blue pattern paper actually is from the Simple Stories I Am 6x6 paper pad. And I'm just lining it up, my flower so that I know where to get my sentiment. And this sentiment is from Mama Elephant. It's called Blessings. Oh, I'm sorry, Blessed. It's called Blessed. And so I'm just taking the sentiment and I'm just going to go right over everything. That way I know where it's going to be. I want to test it out to see if it's what I want it to do. And so I'm just taking a piece of clear acetate and I'm just going to stamp onto that acetate, and then I'll just place my elements back on to see if I like the way it looks. And I am going to have the little flower overhang the edge just for a little bit of interest. And I do like the way that looks. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and commit and stamp onto my cardstock. And I know that the prayers isn't exactly straight, but since it's a circle, I could rotate it to make sure it's straight when I go to complete my card. I want to go ahead and stamp it twice because the part of the word didn't come out as well. You can't really see it on camera, but in person you can see it. I'm just going to take my transparency and I'm just going to rotate my circle so that I know that it's straight. And then I'm going to take the sending, what was it that it said? You are in my part of the sentiment. I'm going to tuck it in right into that little notch between the flower and the beginning of the word prayers. I'm just going to check it to make sure it's straight using the grid lines. And then I'm going to test it out one more time to make sure that everything is straight. It's kind of hard to see those little tiny words because it is a really fine stamp. And so I'm just checking to make sure it's straight, and I like the way it looks. And so now I'm going to go ahead and stamp it onto my pattern paper. I'm going to go ahead and add my clear embossing powder just so that it matches the flower. And now I'm going to assemble all my pieces together. I'm going to use liquid adhesive to put everything down. I'm not going to put any foam adhesive under the flower because I just kind of want it to be a little bit tilted, and because it's hanging off the scallop, it didn't need any. So I just added a little bit of adhesive to the one side, and then I'll use the nozzle of my applicator to add more adhesive to the rest of the circle. I was worried that if I put too much glue that I would end up smearing it across the front of the card. Now I'm going to take one of those circles that I cut earlier and I'm just going to score it so that I could create my card base. I was going to use one of the circles to cover up the pattern on the back of the card front, but I decided that I liked the little flowers and so I just left it alone. I just used a little piece of score tape and trimmed out the extra, and I lined up my score line to my mat, and that way I could make sure that the front of my card was straight onto that card base. And now that that's ready, I'm just going to add a little bit of embellishment to it. I'm going to use my Wink of Stella pen to add a little bit of shimmer to the flower, and this is the clear. And then what I'll do is I'll add some, I think they're called raindrops from paper tray ink. They're tiny little like droplets, and they kind of look like dew. And I'm just going to use my multi-matte medium to add that to the front. And I'm using my Crystal Katana applicator, and I really like it because it doesn't stick to, you don't have to use your fingers to get it off the applicator. And that's it. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this card tutorial. Be sure to give our video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Have a great day.